The culture surrounding television viewing has rapidly changed in recent years with the advent of internet television that is increasingly available on demand at all hours of the day. Primetime is not as important as it once was, with television playback and recording becoming more rapidly available since the implementation of TiVo. Furthermore, cable television has become less popular among the youth in 2018. People have started to opt for secluded, time-controlled individual viewing as opposed to collective viewing due to the escapist opportunities that binge watching provides. Individuals can watch entire seasons of their favorite television shows without leaving the comfort of their bedrooms, and they can access old programming as well as contemporary programming with a few clicks of the mouse. Streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO, and others have broadened the spectrum of genre options that people can choose from.
So as far as cable television goes, I'd say I don't watch many cable television TV shows. I usually will use cable television when I'm watching a sporting event or a significant, maybe an award show, something like that, that you can't stream. So most of my streaming time takes place in my room alone, typically. Whenever I'm done with classes, I'll usually come back to my room and watch a few episodes of whatever show I'm following at the time. So I typically don't watch that much TV with friends unless it's typically a sporting event. But in terms of streaming, I typically stream Netflix shows by myself. The platforms I typically stream on will mostly be my laptop or streaming through an Xbox on a TV. I typically don't use mobile devices or an iPad to stream. I typically use Netflix. I'd say most of the content I watch is predominantly Netflix originals and then also a little bit of HBO Go and also some Hulu content as well.
I would say the primary ways that I watch television are either streamed through the Xbox or the Amazon Fire Prime Stick. Generally when I watch TV, I'm with friends, not alone. Probably spend 2 to 3 hours a day watching TV.
I personally do not have cable television. I'll watch cable television at other people's houses, but no, not normally. Typically I watch 1 to 2 hours of television a day. I think most of my television is watched with friends. The streaming platforms that I use are typically Hulu or Netflix. I either use my laptop or TV to watch shows.
At my house, I use streaming services. If I can't find something, then I'll just pirate it. But I do not have cable. I would say generally I watch TV by myself. I think I watch TV maybe like 2 to 3 hours a week.
Procrastination is one of the negative effects of modern streaming services that provide television on the go. Many students and people of today's workforce cannot imagine a world in which they do not have constant access to their entertainment. In many libraries and offices nowadays, one can see students and workers operating computers and using mobile devices simultaneously, moving back and forth between the devices from second to second.
So yeah, the fact that I can have the access to streaming, streaming sites at any point in time leads to procrastination, I'd say, because I have the ability to just stop working and watch a TV show whenever I want or wherever I want, typically.
Absolutely, I would say Netflix and Hulu 100% make me procrastinate more.
I think, yes, my television time does take away from schoolwork. No, I typically do not stream television shows in the library.
In comparison to how we view television today in the streaming era, during the 1950s, television was just making it onto the mainstream scene. In fact, many people had not even adopted the television as a form of entertainment. Despite the spike in the popularity of the television during the 50s in suburban and urban areas across America, many regions, like South Louisiana, did not welcome televisions until the turn of the decade. Television was much less common and much less relied upon in people's daily lives. Screens were not as mobile and they were not as accessible.
Next door, my aunt and uncle had a TV when I began to watch it, but I didn't know before that, I didn't know what TV was because I'd never seen one. I had a paper route, a morning paper route in Times-Picayune in New Orleans, and I delivered papers, and I'd have to collect 35 cents from everybody for the week. And one time I rang a doorbell, and she opened the door, the lady did, and I saw something in there. It looked like a real tiny movie screen or something. I didn't know what it was, and she told me, oh, that's a TV. I said, well, I've never seen one before.
I think 54 was the first one we bought.
Okay.
And from then on, we had a television. But the reason we got the television was because my mother loved baseball. Okay. There was a particular baseball game she wanted to watch, so she bought the television, I think.
Well, I'll tell you that I didn't care for the programs, so that was one reason we didn't have one. We didn't get one till probably almost 1960, I guess. Well, I'll tell you why I got it, because I had a very young daughter, and I found a couple of programs that I thought she would like. So after that, we had one.
In 1950, yes, we did. I was living in London, and the London area got them faster than all the other parts of the UK.
Okay.
So we had ours early.
How many hours a day did you watch?
Oh, when I was at school, so probably not more than an hour. And everybody all watched the same show, because that's all there was.
The people of the 1950s, as opposed to modern television consumers, did not use television as a tool for procrastination and distraction as often. It was seen as more of a novelty that could occupy an hour or two after a long day's work. Furthermore, most homes only had a single television, so the head of the household generally had say over what program the family would watch. The lack of individual television availability forced people to find other forms of entertainment.
No, school was much more important.
Okay.
No, that was impossible to do because I had to work. I didn't have to watch TV, but I had to work. Put my time in, do it, don't say nothing. 1950s, it wasn't very important at all. It was in the 50s, early 50s, I was in high school, and the only thing I was interested in was girls. And I didn't have any choice because I still didn't have a TV to watch. So I did my homework, went to call my girlfriend, and we did have a phone though, and that's about it.
As far as viewing outside of the domestic environment goes, televisions since the 1950s have become increasingly popular as in-house advertising mediums for corporations and small businesses alike. Additionally, these have become useful in imposing certain moods and atmospheres in collective spaces. Depending on what is on the television in a given place, the conversations and interactions between the people in the place will tend to go in certain directions that are often emanations of what is on the television. This was not as important in the 1950s as it is today, in that many people of the time did not give as much merit to television and its subsequent content. However, it is important to note that the 1950s television practices in public spaces were the basis for today's applications.
I think it's mostly dependent on what channel we have it on, and then whether or not we decide to change the channel. So we'll change everything over to ESPN for like Monday Night Football or something like that, and then for the rest of the week, until we have a reason to change it, we might just keep it on ESPN, so we'll have like the shows regularly going. Sometimes a big game will be on TBS or TNT, and so then when we leave it on that channel, like Bones will come on, or Castle or something like that, or Friends is a classic. Yeah. So it just depends on what it already was set to. When the station keeps running, usually people will pay attention to it. If it's something funny that they don't expect for a sports bar, they'll maybe comment on it. But for the most part, the TVs are just in the background. Most restaurants will play sporting events mostly, and I will pay attention sometimes if it's a game I'm interested in. So if a cable television show is playing in a store that I'm going to, I won't pay attention typically. I'll just focus on doing whatever I need to do in the store and then just leave.
I'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings occasionally for big sporting events. That's about it.
Now, as opposed to the 1950s, people tend to consume television at a much higher rate. However, the method of consumption has changed drastically. Instead of having the television be the centerpiece of an American household, now people tend to consume media on their computers, their laptops, and on their other streaming devices. This has led to the increased popularity of media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, which has fundamentally changed the way in which people understand what television actually is.
I think most of the time that I'm consuming social media or media of any sort, it's via one of the Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube platforms, and it's usually by myself. I'm usually looking at those either on my phone or tablet or laptop, usually by myself. But I'd say overall those are more effective for me, as well as many other people who definitely have similar behaviors on social media as I do. I think it's more effective in delivering news about real world activity, as well as really anything that's going on in entertainment or around the world.
To the 1950s television generation, television is something that has chosen players and is broadcast by a company. In contrast to the 2010s television generation, television is less of a literal term because many of the visual programs today are home videos and layman productions. The line between professional television and individual filmmaking is becoming blurred due to our newfound ability to share our videos on multimedia platforms. Going into the future, it will be interesting to see whether cable television can sustain any profits.